Hi there. I watched an interesting discussion about World War II history a while ago, and the proposition was made that there were many outstanding aircraft, the Lancaster, Spitfire, the Mosquito, for example, but the suggestion was made that the aircraft that actually contributed most to victory was the DC-3, the Dakota, which was a cargo and troop carrying aircraft. I don't know if I agree with that, but it certainly obviously was a very significant aircraft. And the book we're going to review, Immediate Response by Mark Hammond, is about flying the military cargo helicopter and troop carrier, the CH-47 Chinook. Now, Major Hammond joined the Royal Marines, passed the commando course, and was an officer in a commando, and decided that his future would inevitably end up behind a desk. So rather than that, he went into aviation, and he underwent a lot of training in the United States, where he flew attack helicopters such as the Cobra, but was then attached to the Royal Air Force, which doesn't have attack helicopters, so he flew the Chinook. Now, the Chinook was designed and built by Boeing Vertol, specifically for the US military, and obviously its unique aspect is the twin rotor design. So rather than have a tail rotor, which in a conventional helicopter is just there to offset the torque of the main rotor, and you can use it then to change the heading. The twin rotor, each rotor revolves in a different direction. The torque cancels, and also you've got massive lift capability. And the lifting power of the Chinook is legendary, and it can carry onboard troops and stores, including vehicles, but also it has three methods of carrying an underslung load by a winch, and it can actually lift another Chinook helicopter. So it's obviously our principal cargo helicopter, and the book goes into Major Hammond's experience flying it in Afghanistan, in Helmand province. Now, the towns in Helmand, Sangin, Musakala, Nowzad, and so on, it was very important that they were seen to be held by our Afghan allies, and each town had a district centre, which was kind of the place where they flew the flag, and these were under constant Taliban attack. Very, very committed onslaughts which were relentless and never-ending by all means, from suicide bombers to mortars. To resupply the towns and the district centres, it became impossible to do so by road because of the IED threat. So the only way to resupply was by air, and this became a problem in itself, because you couldn't just pick a random place to offload the stores, because again the troops would have to come out to that location by vehicle, and you've got the IED threat. So you had to have defended landing sites, LS, and these obviously became known to the bad guys, to the terrorists. So it became very much a game of cat and mouse. Now, I've already reviewed a couple of books about flying the Apache in these campaigns, and the Apache was the attack helicopter which escorted the Chinooks and suppressed any attacks on them. And thank God that we actually did acquire the Apache, because it was quite controversial at one stage, but it was vital, turned out to be vital. And this book gives you the other side of the coin, the pilot's view of flying the Chinook, which is being escorted by the Apaches. Now, between them, the crews had to devise tactics to get in and out of these landing sites, because the threat from anti-aircraft was severe. The bad guys had RPGs. Single RPG can take down a helicopter, even the one the size of the Chinook, which actually happened with Extortion 17, for example, later on. They also had 12,7 machine guns and 14,5, and also 23mm cannon. So the anti-air threat was absolutely severe, and these are people who had refined their tactics against the Soviets with their high-end battlecruiser helicopters, and their tactics were very, very good, the Taliban tactics. So what the RAF Chinook crews and the Army Air Corps Apache crews had to do was work out ways of getting in and out, and they would do it successfully, but then they had to go back the next day and do it again, and they couldn't use the same tactic again. So they tried to build in as much deception as they could, but at the end of the day you're landing on a known spot, and it was absolutely hairy. Coupled with the fact that sometimes the Chinook would be delivering an underslung load, and Major Hammond describes landing in, it was always in a dust storm, so you've got zero visibility. The twin rotors are kicking up an amazing amount of sand and dust. So the crew members are all looking out, all giving directions of height and so on, and any obstructions. And they had to avoid dumping the load, you know, dropping it the last few feet. It could contain explosives, it might be a vehicle, and so on. So they had to deliver it lightly. At all the time, the Taliban trying to kill them. So every time they went in, it was absolutely hair-raising. So apart from delivering food, water, ammunition, and so on, the other big thing they did, and even more important, was Kazovac, going in and recovering wounded personnel. And they would never ever deny one of those missions. And they would be equipped as a MERT, M-E-R-T, medical emergency response team. So they would have on board surgeons, nursing staff, paramedics, and a full operating theatre of equipment, so that the casualty could be given immediate care even before the helicopter had lifted off. The medics would be on them, diagnosing and treating what would often be severe wounds, and quite often, because you know, in trauma care they have the golden hour, so time is of an essence, and quite often they get them back to Bastion and into the hospital there, Nightingale, and the guy would recover. But unfortunately, and the book does include instances where it was too late and they died en route. It's very, very sad to read. As I say, the threat was enormous. There's a photo in the book, and he talks about what happened when they take a strike to the rotor blade. Reading it, I figured it was a hole. When you see the photograph, it's a huge chunk missing from one of the rotor blades, and it was only an inch away from the pin. If it had damaged the pin which secures the rotor to the hub, the aircraft would have become unflyable and crashed. So terrific flying skill and nerve and courage by all. You know, the pilots give tribute to the crew members who are in the back who are doing a job, and also they have protection troops on board. And the book ends with Major Hammond receiving the Distinguished Flying Cross from Her Majesty. Terrific book, gives the other side of a very, very interesting and very, very essential story from our time in Helmand.